Christmas. He unwrapped it before dinner, already shouting into the headset by dessert. I got a keychain with my name on it, Martha, in chipped plastic tucked into a crumpled gift bag that still had a price tag. Mom said they ran out of time to wrap. No one noticed it didn't come with a card. That was the first time I understood something about my family. The spotlight had one setting, and it never turned my way. My name is Martha Duval. I'm 18 now, and I've lived in the same two-story home in Lancaster, Pennsylvania my entire life. With my older brother Travis. He moved out last spring, sort of. He left his boxes, his mail, and his problems behind. Travis is 26, full of big ideas and even bigger promises. Real estate this year. Crypto last year. Before that, a t-shirt startup. My parents never stopped betting on him. No matter how badly things went, they called it growth. When I made honor roll, they called it expected. When Travis got a traffic ticket reduced in court, they said it showed how well he handled pressure. 3 weeks ago, my grandmother Elaine's mother, Virginia Kessler, moved in with us. She'd had hip surgery up in Boston and needed a few months of recovery. My parents offered the guest room. I offered everything else. By the second week, it was me helping Grandma up the stairs, me timing her meds, me folding her laundry. Mom would peek in with a smile and say, "Thanks, sweetheart," before slipping off to another Zoom call. Dad mostly asked if she needed anything from Lowe's. Travis, when he visited, kissed her forehead and posted about it later. I didn't mind, not really. Grandma and I talked about old books about how Pennsylvania winters used to be heavier. She smelled like talcum powder and vanilla. When she laughed, she patted my arm like it was the most natural thing in the world, like I belonged somewhere. Last Friday night, I came home from my shift at the campus bookstore and heard voices through the kitchen door. I don't usually stop to listen, but something about Mom's tone made me stay in the hallway. She believes him, Mom was saying, low and tight. She actually thinks Travis has been helping with her medications. Dad's voice followed. Just let him keep the story straight through Sunday. He needs to present himself as reliable. This could be the investment window he's been waiting for. He needs that loan, Walter. I'm not going to watch him spiral again. Not if she's willing to step in. There was a long pause. "She's watching," Martha, Dad said finally. "I know." The microwave beeped. A drawer opened. I stepped back, careful not to creak the floorboards. Upstairs, the light under Grandma's door was still on. In mine, I sat down on the bed, still wearing my jacket, and stared at the chipped keychain on my bookshelf. I should have been angry. Instead, I felt expected, like the script hadn't changed, like I had always been the shadow in their spotlight. But now, Grandma was watching, and they were performing. The acceptance letter from Brinsley College had come on thick paper with a navy crest pressed into the envelope. I kept it in the drawer under my socks, unopened, for weeks. I'd already told myself it wasn't an option. Brinsley was private, out of state, and so far from reachable, it might as well have been another planet. I had planned to attend Harrisburg Community College. Stay local, stay realistic. Then the email came. "We regret to inform you." That was the subject line. A clerical error in the state scholarship fund meant my grant had been pulled. Budget constraints, they said. My tuition would now be $12,400. I read the line twice, then once more in case the number would change. That night, I sat at the dinner table with the news sitting in my throat like a stone. Dad was scrolling on his phone. Mom had her planner open, underlining something in blue. Travis was in and out, complaining about building permits. I waited until Grandma excused herself to the bathroom, then spoke. "My scholarship fell through. For Harrisburg. I might not be able to go." Silence. Then Dad looked up, only half focused. 12 grand, right roughly. He leaned back, tapping his fingers against his armrest like he was counting off seconds. "I have a thought," he said. "Something that might work for everyone." Mom closed her planner. Her tone changed, soft and practiced. "Sweetheart, do you remember that education trust Grandma set up when you were little?" I nodded. "Well," she said, smiling like the words tasted sweet, "we've been talking. Travis has a window, an incredible opportunity. A commercial property just outside Harrisburg. He's close to securing it, but the upfront is tight." Travis chimed in, already animated. "The appraisal came in under market and the seller's desperate. If I can lock it in this week, I can double it in under a year. That money won't sit in some lecture hall. It'll move. Mom's eyes stayed on me. We'd just borrow the trust amount. Temporarily. Once Travis flips the property, we'll repay the account, plus interest. And in the meantime, I asked. You can defer, Dad said. Take a semester, maybe more. Honestly, Martha College isn't going anywhere. No one mentioned Brinsley. No one asked what I wanted. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I asked to be excused, walked to my room and closed the door with both hands on the knob like I was holding something back. On my desk sat the keychain again. I picked it up the plastic warm from the sun through the window, turned it over once, twice, then set it down and opened the drawer where I kept important papers, birth certificate, part-time job stubs, a printout of the Brinsley acceptance. At the bottom, folded neatly, and yellowing at the edges, was the document Grandma Virginia had drawn up when I was 9. A small educational trust managed by a third-party firm. Enough for 2 years at a decent college. Enough for the start of something. I read the page like I was seeing it for the first time. I'd always assumed it was a kind gesture, a placeholder. Now it was real, tangible. A thing they wanted, a thing they would take. Downstairs, laughter floated up through the vents. Travis was telling another one of his fast-talking stories. Mom's voice followed, high and agreeable. I laid the paper on my bedspread and stared at it. They weren't asking. They were preparing. Sunday morning arrived with a chill sharp enough to lift the curtains in the hallway. Mom was already moving through the house like a tour guide, fluffing pillows, lighting a candle in every room, rearranging the silverware so it caught just the right light. She'd ironed a linen runner for the table, one we never used. Dad was in the garage trying to fix the screen door Travis had broken a month ago. You don't need to help, Mom said as I came downstairs. Just relax. Be presentable. Grandma's already met me. She smiled without warmth. This brunch is important. By noon, the table was set for 9. Aunt Karen arrived first with Uncle Ray and a bundt cake from the store. Travis was last, of course, stepping in with sunglasses on his collar, shaking snow off his leather boots like someone had been waiting for the gesture. We sat. We passed plates. Small talk filled the spaces between bites. Travis launched into a soft pitch around the second cup of coffee, how he'd learned from past ventures how passive income was the future. His tone was polished, not too eager, just enough sincerity to seem practiced. Grandma listened, nodding occasionally but saying little. I stayed quiet, buttering my roll so slowly it came apart. After the dishes were cleared, Grandma reached into her coat pocket. Her movements were deliberate, not dramatic. She stood. I'd like to say something. Mom stiffened. Travis sat up straighter. Dad stopped mid-sip. This week I've had a chance to observe, she said. To listen. I won't say much except this: I know when I'm being sold something. And I know when I'm seeing the truth. She looked at me, not quickly, not briefly. She held the gaze. Then she opened the envelope in her hand and withdrew 2 items, a folded property deed and a cashier's check. This house in Oneonta, it's not large, but it's mine outright. And this check, $80,000. Together, they're a start. She placed both in front of me, for Martha, for her future, for being the only one in this room who didn't try to make a pitch. The silence that followed was not dramatic. It was tight, dense. I didn't look at anyone. I folded the paper once, then once more, and slid it into my bag. Mom was smiling with her mouth, but not her eyes. Dad reached for his napkin. Missed it, reached again. Travis cleared his throat and said something about the oven still being warm. Grandma sat back down, and we all kept eating. 2 days after brunch, Grandma went back to Boston. Travis carried her suitcase to the car, like he'd helped her pack it, kissed her cheek with the same performative gentleness I'd seen a dozen times. She squeezed my hand before getting in. You call me if anything gets uncomfortable, she said, then held my eyes for a beat longer than usual. That night, I worked a double shift at the bookstore. When I got home, the house was dark except for the kitchen light. I went upstairs, opened my door, and stopped. My desk drawers were open. The papers I kept in a blue folder were scattered across my bed. The Brinsley letter, the trust document, the deed from Grandma. They were all gone. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds before turning around. Downstairs, Dad was sitting in his chair like he'd been waiting. Mom stood near the sink, arms crossed. Travis leaned against the fridge, not looking at me. Dad started first. "We've talked. As a family." I didn't respond. "You're 18, he went on, and this is a big moment. But big moments require maturity. Sacrifice." Mom jumped in. "This property Grandma gave you, it's not set up to help you right now. You're not even enrolled anywhere yet." "I applied to Brinsley," I said. "I was accepted." "It's not practical." Travis cut in. "You'd rack up debt in the first year. Meanwhile, I'm this close to closing on a triplex. That house deed would secure the loan." He said it like the decision had already been made. Dad stood. "It's time you did something for the family." I looked at him. "I've done everything quietly for 18 years, I said. This is the first thing that was just mine." Travis laughed, short, sharp. "Nothing's just yours." "We're family." Mom moved closer. "Sweetheart, let's not turn this into a power struggle. No one's taking anything. We're reallocating assets until things settle." "What if they don't?" Dad's tone sharpened. "Don't be dramatic." "I'm not," I said. "But you are." He stepped forward. "Give me the papers. They're not here." He grabbed my wrist. It wasn't a slap or a shove, just fingers locked tight around skin. But it was enough. I pulled back. "Don't." His voice dropped. "You will hand them over. Or you can leave. And if you leave, don't expect to come back." I stood there breathing in the kind of silence that stretches everything else thin. Then I turned and walked up to my room, locked the door, sat on the bed that had been mine since childhood, and stared at the walls where the paint had started to peel. By 1 a.m., I had packed a backpack, my birth certificate, social security card, school documents, and the check and deed. I'd moved them the day after brunch, hidden in the spine of an old geometry textbook no one touched anymore. I took my laptop, 2 sweaters, a pair of jeans, and the $23 in cash I kept in a mug on the shelf. At 4:30 a.m., I stepped out the back door. The yard was silver with frost. I didn't look back. At the Greyhound station, I bought a one-way ticket to Boston and waited in the corner booth of the coffee shop, backpack pressed against my side like a rib. My phone buzzed. Dad, then Mom, then Travis. "Where are you?" "Come home. You're being ridiculous. That house doesn't belong to you." I turned the phone face down and let the messages roll in. Virginia opened the door in her slippers and a long wool cardigan, her hair still pinned from the night before. Her eyes widened when she saw me, then narrowed like she was reading a line of fine print. "Come in," she said, no questions. The apartment smelled like apples and the faint trace of lavender. I stepped inside and kept my coat on even after she offered to take it. She waited. I sat down at the kitchen table. She poured coffee. I started talking. I told her about the folder on my bed, about my father's grip on my wrist, about the words they used, family, sacrifice, maturity. I told her they took the papers, that I'd moved them before they could find the real ones. I told her I left before they made good on their threat. I didn't cry. I wasn't even sure I sounded angry. Mostly, I sounded tired. She stood there for a moment, hands around her coffee mug, then reached for her phone, dialed slowly, pressed speaker. The phone rang twice before my father picked up. "Virginia." His voice cracked with practiced relief. "Thank God. She's there, isn't she? We were terrified she ran off in the middle of the night, took valuables. She's confused." "She's not confused," Virginia said. There was a pause. "She told you her version," he said carefully. "But Martha has a tendency to David." Her voice cut clean. "She told me everything. I believe her." Another pause. The line buzzed faintly. "She's manipulating the situation. That property, she's too young to manage it. She'll waste it." "No," Virginia said. "She'll learn. That's what 18 is for." Silence. Then Elaine's crying. "Travis is devastated. This is splitting the family." "No," she said again. What split the family was trying to steal from her. I looked down at the table. My hands were steady. Virginia continued. I'm calling my attorney this afternoon. The trust is being locked. My will is being updated. I will not fund this behavior any longer. You're being unfair, he said. No, she replied. I'm being late. She ended the call. Set the phone down gently, refilled her coffee. You'll stay here until school starts, she said. We'll find you a desk. Maybe repaint the spare room. You always hated yellow. I didn't answer right away. She didn't need me to. Outside, the Boston street was quiet snow hanging in the bare branches like punctuation. Inside, the kitchen felt like exhale, like a door that had been stuck for years had finally opened. Grandma found me a small desk at an estate sale, solid oak, 3 drawers on the right one, shallow and sticky in the center. We set it up in the guest room next to a narrow window that overlooked the street. She changed the curtains. I didn't ask her to. That summer I worked part-time at a bakery on Tremont and spent the afternoons reading in the kitchen while she folded laundry or peeled apples for pie. We didn't talk about the house I left. We didn't talk about what it cost her to make that call. Sometimes the quiet between us said more than the stories ever could. I turned off notifications after the first week. The texts went from frantic to guilt-laced to angry, then back again. Mom sent Bible verses. Travis tried sarcasm. Dad called me ungrateful in one message, then still welcome in the next. I didn't answer any of them. In August, Grandma and I loaded the car and drove to Brinsley. She made my bed with hospital corners lined up my pens in a drawer I'd forget to use. Before leaving, she handed me a sealed envelope. For emergencies, she said. Or for cake. Sometimes those are the same. I kissed her cheek and didn't cry until she was gone. Campus was overwhelming in a way I didn't expect. So many lives, so much sound. But I found rhythm quickly. I joined the campus newspaper, kept my head down, listened more than I spoke. For once, no one knew my last name or who I was supposed to be. Midway through September, Aunt Karen called. I almost didn't answer, but something made me swipe. You sitting down? She asked. It's a mess. Travis's investment had collapsed. Deal fell through liens on the other properties, debt collectors circling. He'd moved back home. My parents had taken out a second mortgage. Elaine had pawned jewelry. Walter had picked up night shifts at a lumber yard. He's still pitching new ideas, she said. Still says it's temporary. I let the words settle. They didn't hit the way they used to. Later that week, I got a call from Grandma. They showed up, she said. All 3 of them. Knocked on my door like nothing ever happened. My hand tightened around the phone. They begged, she continued. For help, for forgiveness, for money. What did you say? I said no, she said. And I meant it. There was a pause, then her voice softened. They're not used to consequences, but it's time they made their own repairs. Fall break came with a rust-colored sky and the sound of leaves dragging along the sidewalks. I took the train back to Boston. Grandma met me at the station in her long wool coat, holding a thermos of tea like it was something sacred. We didn't say much on the ride home. I watched the city slip past the window while she hummed along to a song I didn't know. At the apartment, she'd made beef stew and cornbread. The table was already set. We ate slowly. Afterward, she pulled out her knitting while I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop trying to finish a research outline that wouldn't come together. You still bite the inside of your cheek when you're stuck, she said, not looking up from her yarn. I forgot I did that. I didn't. I closed the laptop. Can I ask you something? I said. She nodded. Do you ever regret it? I asked. Cutting them off. She set the knitting aside loop unfinished. No, she said. Not once. She leaned back in her chair, eyes on something I couldn't see. I kept giving them chances, thinking maybe this time they'd see past their own wants. But they never did. And I realized some people only change when they lose something that was never rightfully theirs to begin with. The radiator hissed near the window. Outside, someone's dog barked twice and then went quiet. Grandma reached over and touched my hand. You didn't do this to them, she said. They did it to themselves. I didn't answer, but for the first time in weeks, the knot in my chest started to loosen. I came back once that winter, not for a visit just to collect a box of old books I'd left in the closet. The house looked smaller than I remembered. The shutters needed painting. A plastic tarp covered half the roof. I rang the bell. Mom answered. Her face was drawn like she hadn't slept through a night in weeks. "You're not even going to ask how we're doing," she said. I didn't respond. "I came for the box," I said. "The one labeled Lit Class." She let me in without another word. Inside, the air was thick with something burned, maybe resentment, maybe just reheated leftovers. The living room was cluttered. Travis's voice carried from upstairs arguing with someone on speakerphone. Dad sat on the couch with a can of beer, eyes fixed on a paused football game. I found the box in the hallway closet, taped neatly untouched. I lifted it, turned back toward the front door. Behind me, Mom called out, "You know she said this family used to mean something." I paused at the threshold, then looked over my shoulder. Not at her, not at the house, but past both. "You never asked how I was," I said. "Not once." I stepped outside. Didn't rush, didn't look back. Just walked into the cold with the box balanced in my arms and the kind of silence that doesn't